Live from JBS Studios in the heart of Times Square in New York City, JBS presents in partnership with AZM, the American Zionist Movement, the first ever World Zionist Congress Election Forum.
Welcome to JBS's third World Zionist Congress Election Forum, coming to you from our JBS studios in the heart of New York City's Times Square, and in partnership with AZM, the American Zionist Movement, which is administering the World Zionist Congress online elections. I'm Mark Golub. Honored to be joined by my two colleagues, Shahar Azanai, Senior Vice President of JBS, and Teisha, who is JBS Senior News Producer and Anchor. And what a kick! We're joined right now with the Executive Director of AZM, Herbert Block, and I just wanted to say thank you and Mazal Tov. You have helped create something that's marvelous. Everything you have done for the Jewish community is just spectacular. So I want you to know everybody here at JBS appreciates you enormously. Mazal Tov to you, Herbert.
And thank you to JBS for hosting this and helping the American Jewish public learn about this election. And remember to vote before March 11th.
Absolutely. Are people voting?
They are voting, and we've exceeded the numbers so far from the last election in 2015. And hopefully, Kane Yerbu will have even more American Zionist Jews participating in the next 2 weeks.
I am thrilled. Mazal Tov.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. By the way, last night was another great night, was it?
Incredible service to the viewers who wanted to understand what is it all about.
Yes. Also, the tone last night of the participants was superb, and I received lovely emails. I want to put one up on the screen that, from my perspective, really reflected what many people felt. If we have it, put it up. If we don't have it, do we have it? Yeah. I got an email that said, Rabbi, the panelists behave and spoke like mention. I learned from Merkaz and Shas. Looking forward to this evening's forum. Kol HaKavod. It's from Adina, who lives in Los Angeles and watches JBS on DirecTV channel 388. But anyway, I was very proud of everybody was here, and both of these nights have been fabulous, Well, we expect nothing less from our five panelists tonight as they each articulate their slate's perspective on some of the most challenging issues facing Israel today. And after tonight, we will have featured 14 of the 15 slates, hoping to win your vote to become delegates to the 38th World Zionist Congress to take place this October in Jerusalem. By the way, all 15 slates were invited to participate. 14 were happy to do so, and the only slate which declined our invitation was the Orthodox slate Eretz HaKodesh, which felt its constituency simply doesn't watch television. Anyway, I remind you, the delegates to the World Zionist Congress will help decide how $1 billion will be spent each year on a wide range of social services, educational institutions, Jewish institutions in Israel, on the West Bank, Judea, Samaria, even in the diaspora. Now, in case this is the first election forum you're watching on JBS, let me explain the way things will go. First, we're asking our panelists to be succinct and to the point. We want everyone to have time to present their thinking to you. So we ask our participants to aim for answers of roughly 60 seconds, though no one's going to interrupt if they go a few seconds over. But we will stop panelists if they begin to give speeches or filibusters. Second, we will give representatives the chance to dialogue with each other, again, most succinctly. And in the spirit of dialogue and discussion on JBS, no disagreement may be ad hominem or accusatory of another individual, no name-calling, no interrupting. And again, in both of our first two forums, every panelist was passionate and forceful in their position. And I hope to hear the same passion from our panelists tonight. But the passion must be expressed with civility. Every one of us here is united in support of an enduring and thriving Jewish state of Israel. Everyone here is a Zionist and everyone is pro-Israel. Now, each slate will have 90 seconds for its representative to give an opening statement that I hope will focus on the distinctive philosophy or platform of their slate, since our goal here is to provide you with a sense of whether any of these slates represent you tonight and whether you'd like to support them with your online vote. And then at the end of the program, each representative will have an opportunity to make a very brief closing statement of their own. By the way, I cannot promise we can get to your comments or questions, but please feel free to be in touch with us during this live 2 hours by posting on our Facebook page at facebook.com/JBSTVORG or by tweeting us at JBSTVORG.org. And let me say once again, while JBS is partnering with the American Zionist movement, no one at AZM has interfered with any JBS editorial decision. To the contrary, AZM Executive Director Herbert Block, whom you just met, as well as Jeff Becker and Alicia Post at AZM, all have been most helpful and cooperative as we put together our 3 nights of election forums here on JBS. Again, kol hakavod. Many thanks to Herbert and the entire AZM staff. And please remember, if you want to cast your online vote before March 11th, when voting ends, every one of you who is a self-identified Jew is a permanent American resident who will not be voting in Israeli elections, who is above the age of 18, and who registered to vote at ZionistElection.org, and who agrees to the platform of the World Zionist Organization, the Jerusalem program. You have the right and the opportunity to vote for the slate of your choice. Now tonight you'll hear from representatives of 5 slates, and I want to ask Shahar Azanai to put these slates into context in terms of the last World Zionist elections in 2015. And before he does, I want to introduce Shahar to you once again. If you're unfamiliar with his most impressive background, Shahar is a Sabra, born in Israel. He spent many years in the diplomatic corps of the Israeli Foreign Ministry, serving in Nairobi, Great Britain, LA, and then in New York City, where he was media consul for the Israeli consulate. Shahar then became a regional executive director of Stand With Us, where he developed the campus activist organization's Northeast region. And now Shahar is JBS's senior vice president, and we are all thrilled to have Shahar on the JBS team. Shahar, take it away.
So am I. Getting ready for one more spectacular night. Thank you very much, and I think we can touch on the rundown of the 2015 World Zionist Congress election results as they pertain to our panelists tonight. Of the 5 slates represented with us tonight, 3 ran in the 2015 World Zionist elections, and 2 are running for the first time in this year's election. As our viewers can see, none of the 3 won more than 10 seats. Americans Forum for Israel, the slate representing Jews from the former Soviet Union, won 10 seats out of the 145 allocated to American Zionist organizations. Americans for Israel, a slate of independent Zionists, hopefully to arrive soon, won 7 seats. And Vision, a slate of younger Zionists, won 2 seats. Kol Israel, which is a coalition slate of Stand With Us, the campus activist organization with the Israeli American Council, IAC, a Zionist organization created to represent Israelis in America, is running for the first time in these 2020 World Zionist Congress elections, as is Israel Shelanu, Israel is Ours, which is a slate created exclusively by Israeli Americans. And that's an overview of the slates we'll be hearing from on tonight's 3rd final World Zionist Congress election forum.
Thank you, Shahar. So let's meet our panelists, and to introduce each of them for their opening statements, we turn to JBS's senior news producer and anchor, Teisha Bader. And since I've given you a brief rundown of Shahar's background, you should also know Teisha lived in Israel for 10 years. She's fluent in Hebrew. She has dual Israeli citizenship. Her parents and siblings live in Israel, and Teisha's 2 children were born in Israel. And that gives you an idea of how she does such a superb job for us every night on the JBS News Update. Teisha.
Thank you, Mark. And let's meet our 5 panelists for our 3rd election forum here on JBS. And as Mark explained, we invite them to each take 90 seconds to introduce themselves and their slate's distinctive perspective. So let us start with representing the American Forum for Israel slate, which is the umbrella organization for American Jews from the former Soviet Union. The Vice President of the American Forum for Israel, Irina Zolotova.
Thank you very much. It's a tremendous honor to be here today with my esteemed colleagues and panelists. Thank you, Mark, Teisha, Shahar. We have a unique opportunity to have our voices as a diaspora community heard in the World Zionist Congress elections. As you said, I represent the American Forum for Israel. Our mission is to raise awareness among American Jews, in particular those immigrants from the former Jewish communities of the former Soviet Union, of the critical need for Israel to remain a powerful, democratic, and Jewish state. There are over 800,000 Jews from the former Soviet Union living in the United States today. And we seek and hope to fully integrate all parts of the Russian-speaking American Jewish diaspora into the mainstream U.S. Jewish community on the basis of pro-Israel activism and practical Zionism, as expressed in the Jerusalem platform. The American Forum for Israel is committed to Torah values and to the unity of the Jewish people with shared Jewish heritage and history. We view Jerusalem as an eternal and indivisible capital of the State of Israel and of the Jewish people. We support and believe in the strength of the IDF and defending Israel and Jews all over the world. The American Forum for Israel aspires to reinvigorate the entire American Jewish community with a passion for Israel. We proudly promote the statement, strong diaspora, strong Israel, strong Israel, strong diaspora. We believe that Israel is the only reliable U.S. ally, and we call upon Jews in the U.S. and the entire world to share in the responsibility of strengthening Israel as the one and only Jewish homeland.
Thank you so much, Irina. Here representing the Vision Slate, an organization of young Zionists, is Rudy Rockman.
Thank you for having me, and thank you all for being here as well. So my name is Rudy Rockman. I'm an activist for Jewish rights in Israel. I was born in France, grew up around the world, went to Columbia University, did the army in Israel, and now I try to create content for the younger generation, and that's sort of what Vision wants to do. Vision wants the young people to be able to have a voice, to share what is going on, whether it be on college campuses or in intellectual spaces. And unfortunately, a lot of the Jewish institutions have failed us. They haven't taught us how to be Jews in practice. They've only taught us how to be Jews in theory. So we need to be able to use our language, to use our voices, to be able to create coalitions on college campuses and communicate the message of Israel, which is different than the message of a previous generation. So that's what we want to do on the campuses and in the United States specifically, to be able to train the younger generation of Jews to be able to be strong. When it comes to Israel, we want to create a new vision, meaning that in 1967, Jerusalem was liberated. So the goals of Zionism was accomplished. Zion is Jerusalem, and we came back to Jerusalem. Now the question is, where are we going from there? And in order to figure that out, we have to find a way to bridge the gaps. Why are we right versus the left? Why are we one state versus two state? Why are we religious versus secular? Why do I have to choose between security and identity or rights and justice? Why do I have to choose between a value in believing in Hashem and keeping our traditions or being interconnected with the rest of the world? And so we're trying to be the voice of the next generation, of those that are young, to try and change the way we do things and take the next chapter of Jewish history into our own hands.
Thank you, Rudy. Here representing the Yisrael Shelanu, Israel is Ours slate, which represents Israelis living in America, is a member of Yisrael Shelanu, Kobi Cohen.
Thank you for having me. And it's actually Our Israel in free translation. So for the first time in history, Israelis in America are playing a role in American Jewish life. Yisrael Shelanu, representing approximately 750,000 Israelis living in the U.S., is the first ever slate of Israelis living outside of Israel contending for elections to the World Zionist Congress in the United States. As Israelis living in the United States, it is important for us that our children will also be exposed to educational and communal activities of Hebrew language and culture. And we have decided to take the lead and take our destiny into our own hands. Among the main goals of our slate are establishment of Hebrew language and culture centers and after-school programs for children and youth in the cities where the largest Israeli communities are living in the United States. These cultural centers will operate in an Israeli atmosphere and with Hebrew spoken, and will also hold community activities for the whole family. It will be open for all, Israelis and American Jewry, in order to bring them together, as we are all one part of the Jewish tribe. Israel Shelanu also strive to deepen the dialogue, connection, and arvut hadadit between the State of Israel and American Jewry. Only we, Israelis living in the United States, who know both sides of the bridge, can make a real connection between the two largest Jewish communities in the world, representing almost 80% of the Jewish people. That's us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kobi. And here representing the Kol Yisrael slate, which is a coalition of the campus activist organization Stand With Us, and the Israeli American Council, which represents Israelis living in America, is a member of Kol Yisrael, Rani Fuchs.
Erev Tov, Shahar, Mark, Teisha, thank you so much for having me here. I've been watching the last few nights, and I'm excited to be here. So, Slate 14, Kol Yisrael, is about making Zionism in America relevant again. Zionism 3.0, if you will. It's about inspiring the next generation to be proud and knowledgeable Zionists. Slate 14, Kol Yisrael, is comprised of the Orthodox, the Conservative, the Reform. Slate 14 is comprised of American Jews, of Russian Jews, of Israeli Americans, of Ethiopian Jewish Americans. We speak for the LGBT community. We are Republicans and we are Democrats. We are Likudniks and we are Kachol Lavadniks. Slate 14, Kol Yisrael, believes that our responsibility as American delegates to the World Zionist Congress is to make sure that you and your families get your fair share of the $1 billion that we need to raise the next generation of proud American Zionists. And because of that, Slate 14 has decided not to align itself with any one individual party so that we can pass resolutions with every single one of the slates and every single one of the delegates that come to this Congress. Thank you.
Thank you, Lonnie. And we thank all the panelists for joining us here at JBS for the World Zionist Congress Election Forum.
That was wonderful, a wonderful explication of who you are. We have one panelist who just got caught in the subway, and he'll be here as soon as he can. Rabbi Hollander will be here. He represents Americans for Israel, and whenever he comes, we'll just, slip him in, and he'll pick up the conversation wherever we are at that point. In the meantime, we have 4 of our panelists with us live, and I want to go to now specific questions for all 4 of you. And to begin the questioning, we go to Shahar Azanai.
Good evening. After hearing your initial statements, we'd like to dive into the issues themselves and listen to your positions on them. And the first one of the most ubiquitous terms in the conversation on Israel globally and within the American Jewish community is, of course, the Israeli-Palestinian settlement, the situation in the Middle East, and the two-state solution. So as a first question, which I would like to start with Vision, is to discuss the issue of your position on the two-state solution. And specifically, I want to relate to what is written in the platform online, which I looked at earlier today, and it indicates as follows. The two-state model has not and cannot succeed as it negates the aspirations of both Jews and Palestinians and has only resulted in several new injustices for both peoples. Our homeland cannot be divided, you say. Jews have the natural right to live within an independent state of Israel between the river and the sea, while also striving to act upon our obligation to ensure justice and dignity for all inhabitants of our country, Jew and Gentile alike. Now, we know the expression from the river to the sea. and we've heard it in other connotations, specifically the anti-Israel demonstrations, coming from the Palestinian side. So, Rudy, what does vision mean to convey? Maybe explain to our viewers by using these words. What's your alternative to a situation that, as per your platform, cannot succeed?
So I'm going to give you an analogy that really describes the situation. If I'm an artist and I'm going to create a painting, before I pick the frame on the final painting, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with an idea. I'm going to pick the canvas, the size, the texture. I'm going to pick my paint brushes and the colors. I'm going to start to paint. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to fix it. And then I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to say, okay, with this painting, this frame is what fits. But to talk about a solution right now is like picking a frame before even having conversations with the people on the ground to figure out what type of painting we want to create. In order to find a solution, we have to focus on two things. We have to focus on resolving the injustices that happens to both sides, and we have to focus on fulfilling the aspirations that both seek. And a two-state solution does neither for neither population. In fact, any conversation that we have of a two-state solution removes us from the ability of having conversations to create something. There are many ideas out there on what a potential solution can be like. However, if we don't start to humanize both sides, start to communicate, and figure out how we can move together, we will never get there.
Yet, Rudy, the notion of from the river to the sea cannot live at the same time with the two peoples.
Why not?
It's a claim that the two peoples have. So you let me know. How could that be that both Palestinians can have Palestine from the river to the sea and Israel could have Israel from the river to the sea? Are you talking about the one-state solution?
I'm talking about creating a civilization that fulfills the aspirations for both people and solve the injustices for both. I'm part of something called Habayit in Israel that brings local Palestinian activists and Israeli activists together, and we start on having conversations on what are the problems that both experience it and what are the aspirations that we both have. And what we realize is that our aspirations and our injustices don't contradict each other in order to solve. Now, there are many proposed solutions, such as the federation system that could potentially be a system that is created. But the problem is we're not even speaking to each other. We're forced to be polarized. We're using our suffering as political ammunition to attack one another. And again, a two-state solution does not help the injustices on either side. It won't allow Jews to be able to go to Shem and to Bethlehem, and it won't allow Palestinians to go to Akko and to Yafo, and it doesn't fulfill our aspirations. I mean, why did we come to Israel? Was to create a safe place? Was to live only in half of the land? No, we came back to Israel because this is our indigenous native homeland and the cradle of Jewish civilization. The place where that civilization started is in Judea and Samaria. So Judea and Samaria is very important for us. And when we seek for peace and we want to bring humanity...
And when you say injustice on the side of Israel vis-a-vis the Palestinians, what do you mean injustice? By its very existence? Or
what kind of injustices Israelis experience?
Israel vis-a-vis the Palestinians, yeah.
Well, what kind of injustices the Israelis experience? Well,
no, the Palestinians from Israel, yeah.
Okay, so they're not allowed to move freely. They're controlled by a foreign army that they don't have representation towards. There's a lot of times that their water is cut off. The army is the IDF that I served in, and I still serve as an active reservist, and my brother is serving right now, and I'm very proud to serve in it. However, there's a reality that our own cousins are suffering there. You know, we talk about tikkun olam and ola goim. Well, how about tikkun olam and ola goim to our own cousins in our own home?
And when you're mentioning the fact that not one-state solution, too, you're not willing to commit to a paradigm, but you're calling for conversations. Haven't there been conversations between Israelis and Palestinians
Absolutely
in the past
not.
few decades?
It has been only through the governments that it's in their incentive to keep the conflict going, either for political power or for economic gain. It's time for the population from the ground up to be able to rise, to start having conversations, to humanize each other, because the reality is there's no future without Palestinians and there's no future without Israelis. Neither population is going to disappear.
So in this regard, I'll just finish with this quickly.
Sure.
What would be the first step you'll take in this context to promote your vision?
So this is the context of within Israel. Within Israel, we have to start creating relations from the grassroots level. And that's part of what we do with Habayit, which is a sister organization of vision. We bring in local activists from the Palestinian community and the Israeli community to start conversations, to build relations, to come to each other's villages and cities in order to figure out how do we live together. And unfortunately, a lot of the times when I post on social media these pictures, their faces have to be blurred of my Palestinian cousins.
So you're talking about the mass get-together.
Constant get-togethers, not one time, not two time. We do things such as cleaning the hate, where we go to each other's community to clean the pollution on the ground, because this is the land that we both live in and that we will continue to live in.
Thank you. Irina, what do you think about what Rudy had to say in the general context and specifically?
I think it's an interesting idea. I think it sounds initially a little utopian, but given the practicalities, I think it's really interesting. Our slate's position is that the uncompromising security, full satisfaction of security is number one step. And it doesn't necessarily preclude conversation, of course,
Well,
but
Rudy
that has
says
to be.
conversation comes first.
I think the two things are not mutually exclusive.
And for the two-state solution?
We're not in favor of it, certainly not at this time. I don't think anybody is ready for that. So in that sense, I also agree with that. Cessation of terror is a critical point, and full normalization and of both economic and security interests is crucial.
What do you think about Rudy's criticism of the IDF vis-a-vis the Palestinians? What he mentioned before about controlling a different people?
It's not criticism.
No, so
I
what
don't
is it?
think
I'm
it's-
sorry.
Well,
What is
it's
it?
just
Reflection of reality.
understanding the reality that another population
Understood.
experiences.
Sorry, yes.
I think it does reflect the reality, but I think, again, one thing doesn't preclude full respect for the IDF and supporting the IDF in their mission.
And the one-state solution, is that acceptable to you?
At this point,
One country between the river to the sea, which has Palestinians and Israelis in it?
at this point, I think it's the only solution, but we're certainly open to looking into the future.
Kobe, I'm interested in hearing your opinion, but specifically I'd love to ask you, you proclaimed at the very beginning that you stand for American Israelis, Israeli Americans.
Yes.
Do you think that your constituents care about this topic? And if so, what's the position that your slate wishes to express in this regard? And if you're interested to relate to Vision's vision.
So I'll start by saying that we haven't made a decision about what's going on between Israel and the Palestinians.
We as
Israel Shelanu,
Right.
as we have right-wingers and left-wingers, and our target is to bring, to empower Hebrew and Israeli culture here in North America, here in the United States. We actually think that if we want to build a bridge between American Jewry and Israel, you got to have that as this is our cultural root. But I will say
So
that
are you appealing only to American Israelis?
that's our main target audience. But we do wish American Jewry to join us and collaborate on that. I will say that Israel Shelanu will support any peace treaty that Israel will go to as long as it ensures Israel's safety and the state of Israel as a democratic and Jewish state.
And who makes that decision?
Eventually, it's the Israeli government, but I hope that it will be discussed with the world Jewry, because I think that every matter that concerns the Jewish people should be within the dialogue of the World Zionist Congress and the institutions.
So in that regard, you have no explicit position at this point, whether one state, two state.
I have my own opinion, but I think it's irrelevant for this for this discussion,
slate.
because as Israel Shelanu, we haven't made a statement about the political topics in Israel.
And you haven't made a statement because you don't feel that this is a top priority for your constituents?
It's not. Look, there are 15 slates running to the World Zionist Congress here in America. We are the only slates talking about the needs of the next generation, about the needs of how to keep the next generation connected to our culture, to Israel.
But Kobe, I have to ask you, don't you
Yes.
think they're going to come to you and ask you? You're appealing to the younger generation. This topic is at the top of priority of discussions, at least media
So-
attention and beyond. They're going to come to you and say, Kobe, what do you think?
So I'll tell you this. From my experience, and I actually know Rudy from a long time ago, I used to work on college campuses.
Great.
Our biggest challenge with the younger generation is they don't really care because they don't know. Only a minority cares, whether it's it's on our side, with the Hasbara organizations, or whether it's from the BDS side. Eventually, you're talking about less than 3 to 4%. We need to get to the other 96% of the kids that don't really have any agenda or knowledge. And we believe that the way to get there is first thing for the younger generation to get connected to their heritage. And the heritage is not just the religious, it's also the culture, because eventually, Ivri Anochi.
Right. And last, before we move to Rani, what do you hope to achieve by integrating yourself into the World Zionist Congress?
We would like to create this open space for next generation Israelis.
What does that mean?
I'll tell you. We want those cultural centers that will be all around Hebrew and in Hebrew to bring Hebrew into the table as our cultural root, so people will know the language, not only the second generation Israelis, but also American Jewry. If we'll go 100 years ago, okay, rabbis throughout the world used to communicate in Hebrew.
So direct funding of
And
the World Zionist Congress to the creation of these centers of the Hebrew language.
Yes, and to strengthen the learning of Hebrew language.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
proud that my kids go to a Jewish day school, but I'm lucky to have that, okay? I consider myself to be privileged in that term. But many Israelis, and actually many Jews, can't allow themselves to send their kids to private day schools. So you need to figure out an alternative for them and bring it to them.
Thank you. Thank you, Kobe. Just before we move to Rani, Rudy, would you support his proposal on the World Zionist Congress platform to put funding for Hebrew centers here in the U.S.?
Well, I'm not so sure if the best way to do it is through Hebrew centers. I'm not an expert on it, but I definitely think it's very important to learn Hebrew. It's decolonizing our native tongue. A crime was committed to our ancestors. We were removed from our land, but we were not only physically colonized, we were also mentally colonized.
So Hebrew is essential to your platform
very
as well.
important.
Rani.
I'm sorry, before I answer your question, I have to ask Kobe, the work that you did at the college campuses
Yes.
with the youth, under what umbrella, what organization gave you that infrastructure to do it? It was the Israeli American Council. So it upsets me that you are trying to monopolize ownership of the Israeli American community when I'm sitting here as a council member of the Israeli American Council, whose mission is to bring together Israeli Americans and Jewish Americans together, and furthermore to monopolize the only slate that speaks to the next generation. When I can list seven different programs that the IAC has run and that Stand With Us runs. So I will ask that nobody tries to monopolize the voice for any of our constituents.
So Rani, just before, and I'll get back to you to answer the question, but I really feel that Kobe should be given a right to answer. I want to ask you, just to continue on Rani's point, why not take an opportunity to bring American Jews and Israelis together and run together? Why create an exclusive slate that's only meant for Israelis? Aren't you taking away from the Jewish unity?
We are an exclusive slate because I think that the Israeli voice was not heard in North America. With all due respect to the IAC, and I love the people at the IAC, I have many friends who still work there. I used to work there for 3.5 years. I think that, in a way, they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And I'm sorry, Rani. I mean,
Okay, nothing is ad hominem. We're only discussing the
that's
issues.
right.
Rudy, Rani just mentioned that they're the only ones who can speak to the younger generation. What has been your experience?
Sorry, I didn't. I said we're the only ones.
IAC.
No.
So-
I said that Kobe said that they are the only ones speaking for the next generation. I'm saying
Thank
that
you.
no one owns the monopoly
you
of
for
any of the
clarifying
groups
it.
here to say that they're the
Thank
only
you. It's
ones.
important that
do
our
it.
viewers get the right picture.
Thank you. I'm
Let
sorry
me-
if that's what I came
Thank you.
off
Let me
as.
get back to you on the issue of the
Please.
two-state solution, the peace process. What do you think? What's your state's position on that issue?
So, Slate 14, Kol Israel, believes that as American Jews, we have our right to opinions, we have our right to give advice to Israelis quietly and whispering into their ears. Rudy is the only one here on the stage that lives in Israel, and in my opinion has the right to give an opinion on that specific thing. But if you want to decide, or any one of the viewers wants to decide on that specific option, it's very easy. You make aliyah. You can probably do it in time to vote in the next one. If you don't you're not there in time for March 1st, I'm sure there'll be another one in a couple of weeks. But in all seriousness, Slate 14, we support the people of Israel and its democratic
So you have no
government.
position on the matter.
Slate 14 was created with the mission of revolutionizing the archaic and opaque Zionist Congress, which most Jews don't even know about. So I will not opine on whether there should be a two-state solution because the World Zionist Congress is not the right forum for us as American Jews to discuss that topic.
Teisha, I want you to pick up on that idea.
So that actually brings me to this question, Ronnie, and I'll just to speak to you a bit about it. You mentioned quietly whispering in the ears of Israelis when there is an opinion to convey.
Sure.
So does American Jewry in general have a right to publicly criticize Israel, whether it be on issues of the settlements, whether it be on issues of security?
Look, we have the right. The beauty of where we live is we have the right to do everything, right? And I think that there is a tolerance that is lost in our community, in our country today. And of course we have the right to do it. I question the strategy of some Americans who I believe are coming from a good place, who love Israel. But I always go back and I think of, of these recent revolutions, right? Where I think that there is a certain naivete to go in and say, we need to boycott Israel and we will shove it down their throat because trust me, when it comes down to it, we're all Jewish and we're all going to be looked at as the same. So to partner up with the enemies, right, of the Jewish people is short-sighted, and it has proven in history, whether the Russian Revolution, the revolution in Egypt, it's always the naive, that those with the greatest amount of naivete that end up suffering just like the rest of us. So we all have the right. I question some strategies.
So would you say there should be some sort of an understanding, let's say among all Jewish organizations, that certain things you say, or how do you say something if you do have criticism? Do you think there should be something in place to sort of give people a framework?
After 5,800 years, I don't know that we can set any given framework. It's a hard question to answer. I think it changes from day to day. I don't think that we can write the code as to what we can say and what we can, and it's a hard line to thread. So I hope that my colleagues, my fellow Jews living here in America, think twice about what they do, and what we do has consequences. We certainly all have the right, and I respect the right, and I've been around the table when we've had the discussions of, do we let them in because they've said X, Y, Z? And I've always believed in a wide Jewish tent that lets everyone under the tent and everyone have conversations. Strategically, I think some of us are making mistakes.
Thank you, Ronnie. I'm going to ask you the same question, Rudy. What do you think about expressing public criticism of Israel from America?
So the way I see it, the way I've always seen it, is that every Jew is a descendant from a place called Judea, not necessarily from the tribe of Yehuda. I come from the tribe of Levi from both sides of my family. So why am I called a Jew? Because the name of our civilization was called Judea when we were kicked out. Meaning that when we talk about being a Jew, we're part of Am Yisrael, we're the Ivrim. So if our land today is called Israel, and we're all Jews, that means we're also all Israelis. This is our land. That's why for me, growing up in America, I knew that I would go to the army in Israel. And at 17, I left and I joined the army. So I think every Jew should have the right to be able to criticize Israel, to be able to think that Israel's doing good or doing bad, because this is their homeland.
What do you say, though? Okay, you served in the IDF. You're not the typical Jewish American. American Jew.
Jewish Israeli.
Right? Okay, but for American Jews who perhaps want to be critical of Israel, think they need to be critical of Israel on security issues, do not have a child serving in the IDF, have never served in the IDF themselves, do you think that changes things a bit for them to be able to just express whatever criticism they have of security issues? Let's speak about security for a minute. Do you think that it's carte blanche as far as what they can say and what they should say?
I mean, sure, each individual might have different personal relations to Israel with their own family and so on, but I think it's the homeland of every single Jew. That's why there's a rule in Israel that every single Jew can make aliyah. If this is our home, then I think every Jew has the right to be able to discuss and criticize or say good things about their own home. Absolutely.
Or bad things?
Bad things if there are things that I disagree with my home.
But do you make them public? Do you
Yes,
say them publicly?
absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
How
Rudy.
will we grow if we don't criticize?
Thank you. Kobe, I'll ask you the same question. As an Israeli living in America, how do you feel about yourself or people in your community expressing public criticism of Israel? And do you think it should be curbed at all or taken with some degree of sensitivity?
I think it's okay to agree to disagree at times. And as long as people care and they are, being supportive of the state of Israel, even if they disagree with the government, it's one thing. But if they support the BDS, and you talked about Shahar, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, okay? That's eventually the bottom line, that they they go against the existence of the state of Israel, and that's something that we can't take. It's one thing to criticize the government's activities, which is okay up to a certain point, because also they don't live there. We don't live there at the moment, none of us, besides Rudy, okay? So it's hard to understand at times when you only look at TV and you see the news, okay, you don't get the full picture. So I say it's okay to criticize up to a certain point, but go and check the facts and then get your opinion.
Thank you. Irina.
Look, we're talking about the democratic process here. So obviously people are going to have their own opinions, and obviously we need to have discussions. I'd like to come back to the idea of a framework, because there's a difference between people sitting around the table and expressing their opinions and perhaps criticizing the government, and we could have a separate discussion as to whether criticizing the government is the same thing as criticizing Israel. But to take specific actions, meetings and discussions and sponsoring resolutions, I believe that goes incredibly way too far. I think that it undermines the legitimacy of the state of Israel, and I don't think there's any room for that.
Thank you, Irina. You wanted to add something, Rudy?
Yeah, I think when it comes to criticism, I think Natan Sharansky defined it the best way. There are 3 Ds. If it demonizes, delegitimizes, or holds a double standard, then it's not really criticism. It's sort of using suffering or pain as political ammunition to attack another. But if you're criticizing in order to build up, in order to grow, or to change things in a positive way, I think that's completely fine.
Good example.
Can you give an example?
Okay, for example, I would say that Israel currently has way more power than the Palestinians. And one criticism that I have of the current Israeli government is that they're not doing so much in order to start conversations and to protect the peoples on the ground that represent the Palestinians in order for them to actually be able to stand up. Because all the Palestinians don't see the PA as their legitimate government. They're on their 15th year of their 4-year term. So why doesn't Israel use its role, use its power to be able to liberate those voices?
How would you do that? How would you give more power to the Palestinians?
Well, first of all, like I said, Israel should be using its power to protect the individuals that truly represent the Palestinians. And I know a lot of them myself, and they believe Israel has a right to exist. They don't believe in this sort of nationalism that was imposed on them by foreign countries and by the Arab countries and by the rest of the world. What they want is to be able to live freely, to have water, to have electricity, to have a lot of things. And they're not by nature anti-Israel. So why does being pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian have to oppose? Why does being pro-human rights and pro-identity have to oppose?
I hear you. Are there actual people in positions of leadership within the Palestinian community, within the Palestinian Authority even, that are willing to stand up and say what you just said, that Israel has a right to exist? We've not heard that. We have not seen that. So I'm wondering if you actually know of people in positions of some sort of power in the Palestinian Authority, in Gaza, that have said this publicly, and that would be willing to say it in a public arena.
Definitely not in the Palestinian Authority and the Hamas, because they don't truly represent the Palestinians. But I'm talking about local representatives, meaning that the way that the people living there really run themselves is you have a village and you have a head of the village. And some individuals that have enough backing do speak out. But when I post a picture of these meetups, I have to blur out the faces of these Palestinians because the Palestinian Authority will interrogate them.
Teisha, just a quick interjection.
Sure.
Some may say that what you just said about the Palestinian Authority and Hamas not representing the ordinary Palestinian may seem to be condescending towards the Palestinians, as if they're being controlled but not being able to express their free will vis-a-vis Hamas, which has experienced several rounds of elections. So one thing is, how would you address such a claim? And second of all, when it comes to criticism of Israel, is there not a difference, some would say, between an audience that knows something about Israel to an audience that has no idea about Israel? And we know, from what Kobe mentioned before and others, there are many out there who have no idea about what Israel is, what the Palestinians are. So when you say, Rudy, that Israel is being too powerful vis-a-vis the Palestinians, or doesn't do much, when it falls on ears of people who know, they may understand what you mean, because we know where it's coming from. But when you talk to people who've only heard the negatives of Israel, and we know what the negatives are, you mentioned the 3 Ds, you may be augmenting that with an image that really feeds into that narrative. So shouldn't there be a differentiation between the venues of that criticism?
So I definitely never said that Israel is too powerful. I don't believe in that. But what I said, and definitely to your point, I think that every individual speaking about any issue should educate themselves before they speak up. And then once they educate themselves, they should be able to use their platform.
That's that's ideal, but we know where we live.
For sure. And again, and then it falls to the 3Ds, because there are many individuals that are Jews that oppose our human rights and ability to go and to live in our own
So what do you
homeland.
do with them? You're uttering your criticism, but they have ignorance about Israel, so they listen to your criticism in a very different way.
Sure. So let me first answer the previous question. Where
Yes.
you said, does the PA and Hamas not represent the Palestinians? The PA is on its 15th year of its 4-year term again. They don't represent the Palestinians.
No,
Now,
I was saying that some view the statement that was heard not only from you, but from Israeli officials and others. They look at it as a condescending assumption, as if the residents of Gaza don't support Hamas, and if it's our obligation, or they claim that Israel's obligation to be enlightened and release Gazans from the rule of Hamas. And I'm asking you, what would you tell those who think that this is a condescending argument?
So there might be many individuals that support the PA and Hamas, but as someone that lives on the ground and has relations with the people, I can tell you that they're being oppressed by the PA and Hamas. If you have a different opinion, you can't voice it. If you are LGBTQ+, you can't be it. So the PA and Hamas is using the suffering of Palestinians in order for them to have billions of dollars in the bank account. And it's not because they invested in Bitcoin at the right time that they have this money. It's because they're using those suffering in order to continue their business. And I think Israel should use its power, not that it's too powerful, to be able to help our cousins in this land. Now, to the point that you said about Jews that become anti-Israel.
And do they want to be helped?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm not saying we need to impose anything on them or to speak for them. I'm saying free them and allow them to speak, allow them to have a voice, allow them to take action into their own hands. And then we can discuss and criticize. Because to blame everything that the PA and Hamas does on all the Palestinians is the same thing that they do on us when they find one bad apple or one bad individual and blame all Israelis for that.
So you were mentioning your criticism of the Israeli government. We heard on the news over the past weekend that Israeli security officials traveled to Qatar to plead for Hamas's funding, for Qatar to release more funds to support Hamas. Is that something that you feel is a positive step by Israel?
That Israel wants Qatar to cut their funds to Hamas?
No, not to cut their funds.
To give more funds? Absolutely. Yeah. That allows a system that is oppressing my cousins in our land that we collectively live in to continue to live in an oppressive way. Now, you asked me about Jews that become anti-Israel. And a lot of people on the pro-Israel side, and I don't necessarily consider myself pro-Israel because I'm not pro-Rudy. I am Rudy. I consider myself Israel. And I think non-Jews should be pro-Israel, and I think it's part of a conversation to decolonize and not to see ourselves as outside forces supporting, but being players in the game. Now, when it comes to Jews becoming anti-Israel, there's a term in psychology called the Stockholm Syndrome. Right? When someone suffers under an oppressive force, sometimes they make excuses for it, or sometimes they even blame themselves. And so when I look at Jews that kind of don't want to do anything, don't want to react to anti-Semitism rising, it's because they're afraid. There's passed down generational trauma that has brought to them because we all know what we've been through over the past 2,000 years. And some Jews come to the conclusion that the only way we can survive or thrive or be a part of the society that we live in is to side with those that oppress us. So we should find a way to speak with them, to communicate them, to teach them who we are, to be able to show them a way. So I'm not about going and fighting them. I'm about changing the conversation. Look, I'm going to have kids at some point. I just got off college campus. I'm now doing my MBA. And I want my kids to live in a better reality in Israel. But to have that better reality, we have to start uniting people and not continuously dividing people, because clearly continuing the same way is going to have the same results.
You also have to find practical ways to do it.
Absolutely.
So I'm listening to all of you, and you all present yourselves so well. And at the same time, I continue to be a little bit surprised at what I hear. So do I understand, Kobe, the question was asked, are you for or against a two-state solution? And you said you have no answer.
I said that as a slate, we
Slate
haven't made a decision on that
listen,
point because it wasn't a part of our agenda.
It's okay. So, right. I don't even understand why I guess your agenda is you're hoping people will vote for your slate so that once your delegates become part of the World Zionist Congress, they can exert as much influence as possible to get funding for Jewish institutions, especially something like Hebrew, outside of Israel.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not exactly Jewish education. I'm talking about learning the Hebrew language.
Okay, it's more specific. So it's
and
interesting.
Hebrew culture.
Okay, so you're presenting a slate which has as its goal, and it's fine. Everybody should just understand. Your goal is we want more Hebrew in America.
Yes.
and you're going to get it through the
Make
World
him
Zionist
great
Congress.
again.
Then I hear, we ask you, so
Slate 14.
slate 14, Ronnie. Stand with us and IAC. Are you for the two-state solution? And your answer is that I don't have a position. The
No,
slate,
no.
The slate, the
I-
slate has no position.
The slate has decided to not take an official
Exactly right.
position.
You have no
Not that
posi-
we have not thought about it, not
I
that we
don't
have
care.
not
The
discussed
bottom
it.
line, everybody here just should understand, I've got two slates in front of us.
Yep.
Neither one want to weigh in, yes or no.
No, this slate believes that we should not, and that the World Zionist Congress is the wrong venue, and if you want to have an opinion on it, go and vote in the Knesset, and then you get to participate in it. It's very clear from our perspective.
I understand, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to make sure everybody understands. I've got two
Me too.
slates here that do not want to weigh in on that issue for whatever reason. Then I've got one slate, I think, Irina,
Yes.
that says you don't want a two-state solution because you believe Israel should be from the river to the sea.
Well, Israel should be strong and secure.
No, you don't. You want there to be a one-state solution, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I've got Irina who wants a one-state solution, and for a slightly different reason, although I'm not clear I understand. Rudy, you say Israel should be from the river to the sea. That's in the vision platform, that explicit. And what you want is, and I would be upset for anybody who made fun of what you were saying, because you're saying it in the most loving and idealistic way. What you're saying is, there should be a way for human beings to embrace each other, to get past the nonsense, and to get past the power structures which are enslaving, in this case, I don't think you'd say Israelis are being enslaved by the Israeli government, but you do feel that the Palestinians are being enslaved by the PA and by Hamas. And I think many American Jews would agree with you. I agree with you. To me, this is not about the Palestinian people. And all of us have experiences. My experiences with individual Palestinians have been wonderful. But they do not have freedom. And you do have to blur out their picture when you take their photograph. And so for me, and this is, again, I'm expressing only my opinion, it's messianic what you want. I worry that the idea that Israel has the power to dethrone the governments of PA or Hamas is a little bit, there's hubris involved. It's tragic that the Palestinians live under that system. I'm sorry, the one thing that I felt a shiver go through me when you were talking, I don't believe Israel is inflicting injustice on the Palestinians. I do feel that the Palestinian Authority and Hamas is creating situations which demand a response from Israel that has to do with security. And you have talked about security as well as everybody up there. And if there are checkpoints, there are checkpoints for a reason. And when you served in the IDF, if you have the right to go into any West Bank village anytime the IDF believes there's a terrorist operation nascent or in actual flowering, the only reason the IDF has the right to go into any West Bank community is to stop terrorism. If there were no terrorism, there would be no checkpoints. The IDF would not be going into communities. And that ultimately, the idea of a two-state solution is to recognize that the Palestinians have aspirations of their own, national aspirations, on the same land that our ancestors come from, Judea and Samaria. And since 1936, Rudy, the formal Jewish position has been, 36 till today, one position. We're ready to share the land if there's ever a Palestinian community willing to share it with us as Canada lives alongside Israel. And
Okay.
I don't understand why every one of you isn't saying that if that were to be, if the Palestinians said, we'll live next to you like Canada lives next to Mexico, I don't know why all four of you are not saying, in that sense, of course we would be for the two-state solution. And everybody watching the panel of tonight, everybody watching you tonight, cares whether your slate is going to go to the World Zionist Congress with a mentality of, it's not our business, doesn't really matter, I've got an idealistic vision, but I don't know how to work it, and I only care about Israel, I don't care about Hebrew in America. All of us, all of the people watching, that's what they have a right to understand and see. So I'm happy to be corrected by any of you, and I'm so glad all four of your hands are up. You've talked the least, you get to go first. Ronnie.
Mark, it's not that we don't have an opinion. It's not, it's a fascinating topic, and it's an important topic. It is not the right venue for the discussion.
This
I
isn't
would
a
be
venue.
happy.
This
The
is not a
World
venue.
Zionist
This is
Congress
a
is not the
forum
right
where
venue.
you are asked to speak to American Jews watching all over the country. The one email I read was from Los Angeles. We've got viewers from Los Angeles to New York to Florida to Chicago, and they're watching in Africa and Sweden and Israel online. And one of the things that they would like to know is, if I vote for Ronnie's party, what's the number?
14.
14. If I vote for slate 14, Kol Yisrael, am I putting into the World Zionist Congress people who really believe there should be no two-state solution? Or am I putting into the World Zionist Congress people with a perspective that, you know what, yes, we will share the land if there's anybody ever to share it with. And you have every right to say, it's none of your business and it's none of our business. You could say basically, I don't want to answer the question because it's not the right, when I go to the World Zionist Congress, I'm never going to have to answer that question. But if you want people to vote for your slate, one of the things that matters is where your slate stands on this question.
So that's part of the problem with the World Zionist Congress. People don't understand what this body is. And I push back again with all my force. I hear you,
Okay.
but the viewer in Los Angeles,
Okay.
Mark, please, let me just finish this one. The viewer in Los Angeles should not care if Ron Fuchs wants a two-state solution or not. They should care if Kol Yisrael can put the right infrastructure in place in Los Angeles to make sure that toddlers are learning Hebrew, that there is Tzofim, that the high schoolers
Okay,
are
I will
connected to
give you an
Israel. That is
example.
what they
I'll
should
give
care
you an
about, and that's
example.
why
I'd
they're
love to hear
voting for
all
us.
four of you answer. One of the questions that could be dealt with in the World Zionist Congress is whether institutions beyond the Green Line, on the West Bank, educational, religious communities, will your World Zionist Congress money go to communities on the West Bank? And that absolutely is impacted by whether a person believes in the two-state solution or not. For you to act as if this is an issue that has nothing to do with the World Zionist Congress, I believe you've been misled. One of the questions your delegates will be, you're running. If you go to the World Zionist Congress, you'll have to decide whether money goes to the West Bank, whether you're going to fund a synagogue in REL.
A reform
All
synagogue,
of you
right?
are going to have to do that. So it's not inappropriate for a Jew to say, I'd like to know, Ronnie, where your slate stands. And it's true of all of you. All of you raised your hand. What's your point?
Okay, first of all, I just wanted to say that I think it's a little disingenuous to say that we said that we don't care. I think everybody here absolutely cares and has opinions on this issue. What I
You were
said.
very, very quiet about it. If you cared, it didn't come through. I'll give you a chance now to care. What do you think should be done with a two-state solution?
Well, you said that it's been the position of most Israelis that we will share the land. If
I
there
never
was
said
ever,
Israelis. I said it has been the
Jews.
formal position of the Jewish community
Jewish community.
since 1936 that we will share
Share the land if there's someone to share.
anyone to share it with. That has been and remains formal Jewish policy.
And I think it coincides and it lives together and side by side with saying that the Palestinian Authority is not the buddy with whom we are, at this point, capable of negotiating
Right.
towards a two-state solution.
Right. Right.
And there may be people on the ground, and I completely believe that there are people on the ground, and I don't think that it's condescending, especially if somebody has experience with that. I believe that there are people on the ground who will want something else for the Palestinian people. Is it the right of Israel to impose that? No. Is it right for them to have discussions with these people? Yes.
Go ahead.
So you said a lot in response to what
I
I said.
did. I
and
always
I've been
say a
very
lot.
patient, and I'm a very patient person, and I've listed every single point that you brought, and I'm going to talk about them very briefly. So one of the biggest reasons that I'm against a two-state solution is because the reason that we have Zionism is about returning to Zion. Zion, Jerusalem, is in Judea and Samaria. Judea and Samaria is the cradle of Jewish civilization. So first and foremost, it's an indigenous right. Second of all, let's talk about
No,
security.
do one at a time. Okay.
It's an
no one disagrees with you.
Okay, but you're
Just a
saying
minute.
let's
No
remove
one
the people from that
disagrees
land.
with you. Let's do one point at a time. No one disagrees with you. And by the way, at one point, we thought we were getting both sides of the Jordan River. That was the original mandate coming out of San Remo and the League of Nations. Then we lost Transjordan. And in 1936, the British said to us, there'll be chaos forever here unless you're willing to partition the land. And the Yishuv and Ben Gurion and the Whites, and they all discussed it. They didn't like it. They said yes. Then they said yes again in 47. Then they said yes again in 48. Then they said yes again in 67. Then they said yes again after the Yom Kippur War. Then they said it again in 2000. Then they said it again in 2004. And they said it in 2008.
And not one
Then
time
they
were
said
the
it-
Palestinians actually
Yes,
represented.
and therefore, if
No,
there
it was
is no
always-
one,
it was
if there's
always
no
leaders
one,
that aren't truly representative of their
I
population.
agree with you. I agree with you.
Let me answer all.
I'm
of your
only
points,
saying
please. Let me
that
get
it's
it out.
not an answer. The answer that we want the entire land, of course we do. But the Jewish position has been, we'll share the land.
No, that's the position that certain governments imposed or that were democratically
you
elected
can-
and that chose.
You
But
can
clearly that has
disagree
not
with
done.
it. You can
Of
disagree.
course I disagree with it.
But
and
it has
I,
been the formal position
Of
of
the
the
Israeli
Jewish
government.
community, of the Jewish world.
I'm sorry that I'm also a part of this Jewish world.
You're a minority.
No, I don't
By the
think
way,
I don't think we're a
Jabotinsky
minority.
was also part of the Jewish world.
Yes.
He didn't agree too.
Exactly.
You're in the minority. You have every right, Rudy. But you don't have a right to
Okay, so
pretend
maybe-
that the Jewish world
I don't
has
believe
not
we're in
had
the
this
minority,
commitment.
but at least today, we're definitely in the minority, not in the minority. Today, most Israelis living in Israel, and I would say even a lot of Jews that are pro-Israel support the Jewish right to live in Judea and Samaria. So,
Absolutely.
So wait, let
That
me
does
let
not
me,
mean
let
they're
me fin-
against a
you
two-state
brought so
solution.
many points, and I could have responded, but I waited for you to finish your
understand,
points,
and
and
I-
I would like the opportunity to be able to
Just
address
do
those
them one
points.
by one.
Absolutely, I'll do them one by one. Apart from the indigenous claim, there's also a security problem. We already saw what happened when you pull out of Gaza. What's going to happen when you create a state? First of all, it's not going to be for the local Palestinian society. It's going to be continuously for the PA. And we know exactly what they're going to do. There are many reasons why a two-state solution would not work. Now, when you talked about checkpoints, I'm not against the fact that we put checkpoints in order to minimize terror. I understand that. I've lost 4 friends in one summer and another friend 2 years ago. What I'm talking about is in the future, do I want to continuously live in a society with checkpoints? Is there a way, or can we start a conversation to figure out a way to no longer have those checkpoints?
Do
that
you
is
know
the,
one Israeli who disagrees with you?
But we're not having the conversation.
Do
We're
you
making-
know one Israeli who would say anything different than you just said? I don't. I don't know one Israeli who wouldn't say.
So I don't know why you
And
would disagree with me when I'm saying that we shouldn't have checkpoints in the future.
We absolutely shouldn't.
Okay,
We
but,
don't
but
need
you mix
checkpoints
that
if
as
there's
if I had
peace.
made excuses for why
But
they
you
don't,
still
they
have
don't
a
But
exist right now.
Shahar asked you,
Yes.
give me an example of how you feel Israel is inflicting injustice.
I never said that Israel is inflicting. I'm saying the Palestinians are experiencing. We're both
And
experiencing.
he asked you, is it at Israeli hands?
No, I cannot blame the consequences of the 3 wars that were waged by the entire Arab nation surrounding Israel
this is important for
on
me.
Israel.
Very good.
Right? I do not blame the victim at the time that was weaker on Israel. However, now that we are stronger
Yes.
and that we have the ability to move forward in the
Yes.
future, we need to start having a conversation on how we can do that.
No one is against the conversation, Rudy. There's nothing interesting or new
Yeah,
there.
but when I have that conversation, you get bring to me as if like I'm sort of saying that we should have never had checkpoints in the first place.
No.
Or that Israel is inflicting pain on the Palestinians. I've never said those words.
Okay, but you used the word injustice. I used pain.
Yes, there is an injustice that they're experiencing
Yes, but
on both sides.
I don't understand that.
The status quo is the injustice. We have to change the status quo.
In what-
And you said I'm too idealistic. Okay?
Yes.
If you don't have ideas, you will not change the world. In fact, Herzl is the one that said, if you will it, it is no dream, with an idea that so many people didn't believe. And in this World Zionist Congress, it was in this Congress that we decided to create a state in the very beginning, so of course we should talk about if we're pro or not pro a state. Because this is the platform to share our voices as the Jewish world, which is Am Yisrael's world. Now I do want to talk on some other things. You talked about national aspirations of Palestinians. Since when have they actually spoken for themselves? It has always been foreign leaders. Yasser Arafat was Egyptian. Which leader has ever truly represented the
suggesting
Palestinians?
that they don't have national aspirations?
No, I'm suggesting that you actually listen to their national aspirations from the people and not from those that
And
use the
if I
people
listen,
to
what
pursue
would
their
I
goals.
hear?
You will hear that they don't see their aspirations the same way that Israel sees their
How do
aspirations.
they?
For us, it's important to have a Jewish civilization. You know why? Because we had a Jewish civilization.
And what is
they
their
don't believe in this
what
whole
is their
nationalism.
aspiration?
Their aspiration is to have local control over their own communities, to be able to have freedom of access to movement, to be able to freedom of access to electricity and to water, and to live in a state where they can have better lives. Those are their
Okay,
aspirations.
I have never heard that. I've never heard any Palestinian
Because that's the problem, we're not having
I
a
have never
conversation.
heard any Palestinian write it. I've never seen it in an op-ed in the New York Times. And I don't know who you know, but what you're giving me is anecdotal information here. Rudy knows because Rudy talked.
Don't worry.
It doesn't work
There
that
are plenty
way.
of people.
When they start making this public, I will take that argument more seriously. And it's not that I don't take you seriously. I believe that you are giving us exactly your experience. But the viewer should understand, we are hearing your experience. You're not giving me some kind of formal paper.
I'm
You're
giving
not
you the
telling me what's in
experience of everyone
schools.
living on that land.
It's
I can
not
guarantee you
everyone.
that people living in Judea and Samaria have the same experience
not
as me.
everyone.
And there are plenty of videos that I do on my social media which showcase these voices. Sometimes we have to blur their faces, but they talk about it. The problem is that you have not experienced it. Not that it's my opinion. The problem is that you have not engaged with it, and it's not your fault. It's because a lot of the Jewish world refuses to engage with this. The second we start talking about Palestinians, either they're suffering or coming together and finding a solution, we right away feel afraid. Right away, oh, it's because you're against the checkpoints.
Nothing you're saying applies to me.
Excuse me for
By
a
the way,
second, but
you're very, Bowie, you know I love you.
I
I
love
love
you
your
too.
idealism. I love your passion. I want you to be right.
Amen.
And we've taken too long, you and I. Okay, Kobe.
So first thing, allow me by starting and saying that I think it's really important, it's really interesting, the dialogue that the two of you were having, but there are other 3 more people here
You're absolutely
that
right.
want to represent an
absolutely right.
opinion.
Go ahead.
So maybe you can, for next time to have a different...
Easy does it. I said
Okay,
you're right.
thank
Go
you.
ahead.
So I don't know many Israelis who are against a 2-state solution, but they want to make sure that there is another side that is willing to take actions for peace. So I do believe when the time is right and when people will come together, we can achieve a 2-state solution. I can't tell you that my whole slate will support it, and I don't know if all of the Israelis living here. It's once again it's my thought around it. But eventually, I think that most Israelis share the same belief that they want to live in peace and secured state of Israel with a formal border that at the moment doesn't really exist. And that's the thing with the 2-state solution. And for what you were asking about, religious, you said whether, I think it was for Rani that you asked him if they will support synagogues in the West Bank. In general, I think that you have plenty of money spent in Israel about education and about religious. And I think that the World Zionist Congress money should be poured around how you strengthen the connection between Israel and the world Jewry, and not just on matters within Israel. And that's, I'm saying as a whole, not just around the West Bank or...
I understand.
Mark, I have to
Yes.
say that I think it would be an injustice and
Slate
not,
number 3,
and,
yes.
and not intentional injustice on your part. If there was one viewer that left this broadcast thinking that Slate 14 is going to run through the halls of the Congress with a machete fighting against a two-state solution. We are all listed on the slate. You can go on to zionistelection.org. Each one of us is very vocal on our thoughts independently, and you can know who we are. Number two, that point on whether or not there are votes on how budgets are spent and where they are, you can't find them. So I believe that the World Zionist Congress should move from this archaic electronic system that makes it impossible for people to vote to the point that we see all the resolutions, who voted, what do they vote for, right? Because the reality is there's going to be 500 of us jockeying for our constituents. So more transparency will answer
That
my
is a
question.
brilliant point. You know, and I'm not here to revise how the World Zionist Congress works. There are real problems with the way the World Zionist Congress works. That's not what this is about. This is about once you guys, I hope, but there's a very good chance every one of you standing here today is going to be part of the 38th World Zionist Congress. When you get there, regardless of all these other issues, I hope you really work on that. Because it seems to me that one of the things that we want, all of us here want, is transparency in the Jewish world. And if you're going to vote on issues, I want to know how you voted.
Amen.
I want to know how all of you voted. Anyway, you get to pause now for a few minutes. You've been fabulous. You've taken the slings and arrows. You've given very well back. And we will continue. We'll be back in just a few moments after we share some information with you about JBS. So please stay with us for part 2 of tonight's third forum on the world elections of the World Zionist Congress.
Shalom, I'm Michael Oren, and you're watching the Jewish Broadcasting Service, expanding Jewish understanding, celebrating all things Jewish.
Take part in Shabbat services every week here on JBS, with a Kabbalat Shabbat service every Friday night before sundown from the Hampton Synagogue in West Hampton Beach, New York, and with Central Synagogue's Friday night and Saturday morning services at 6 p.m. on Friday and on Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. If you're unable to attend a synagogue in person, you can still celebrate Shabbat with the entire Jewish community, right here on JBS, celebrating all things Jewish.
I don't think that anybody today anymore asks the question why JBS is important.
I think history will record that you created outlets of teaching and touching Jewish souls and beyond the Jewish community in an unbelievable way.
In a world where every now and then we get a little Jewish this or a little Jewish that, it's a place where Jews can find their home, they can find their roots.
It gives us a Jewish lens on everything that interests us, challenges us, confuses us, and frankly worries us. And I want a place that I can turn to that makes me think and makes me care.
The Jewish people in America need a profound voice that needs to be heard by Jews and non-Jews about the status of Jews in America, the fate of Israel, the problems of anti-Semitism. All those things are encapsulated in JBS.
From the culture, to the movies, to the tefillah, to the songs, to your teaching of Hebrew, and to what we're talking about, which is what are the existentialist issues of today.
A lot of us do good work, a lot of organizations, but if we didn't have a JBS, if we didn't have an outlet where people could hear and see what we do, it wouldn't be as effective.
I have learned so much from you and from JBS. This is my go-to station.
The greatest danger we face is not all the enemies arrayed against us. It's apathy, ignorance, and indifference. JBS stands against them.
We hope hope you'll support JBS as generously as possible by sending a tax-deductible check to JBS, P.O. Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. Or you can make a tax-deductible donation online by visiting the Jewish Broadcasting Service website at www.jbstv.org and clicking on the Donate button at the top of the homepage. Become part of the JBS family and help sustain the State of Israel and the future of American Jewry. We thank you for your kind support. And now we continue with the first ever World Zionist Congress Election Forum.
Welcome back to JBS's third World Zionist Congress Election Forum. I'm going to miss this when it's done.
We have to continue doing it.
You have to come back again. By the way, I'm sorry you weren't here during the break. Everybody's hugging and kissing. But the truth is, there's enormous regard, respect for everybody here. And even if we disagree, and incidentally, some of the times, I should say this to you, I was not arguing for or against the two-state solution. I was only arguing that I want our audience to get to hear, to the extent to which it's possible, what you guys think. And I think you did a very good job. We have our fifth panelist, Teisha.
Yes, welcome. Here to represent the Americans for Israel. Slate, an organization of independent Zionists, is a member of the Slate, Rabbi Shimon Den Hollander. 90 seconds to talk about what your Slate stands for.
Well, thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here. Americans for Israel is a slate, Slate's 13, that stands for supporting Israel in a way that builds bridges. So as some people already know, who have oriented themselves, we are very much in the middle, both religiously and politically. That means we are extraordinary fit to build bridges. We want to bring people together. So people from the religious right and the religious left. We believe there should be freedom of religion in Israel, and that includes an end of the monopoly of the rabbinate. So a multi-faced Judaism, but also the politically the right and left should try to come closer. There is too much polarization, we believe, and together we should strengthen the identity of Israel in terms of Judaism, in terms of humanism, in terms of building towards a better society and a better world, and also strengthen education. I've heard this already outside of Israel. We should strengthen the state of Israel, but also the Jewish communities outside, and as a small world. So you can be part of this big dream, of this big ideal inside and outside of Israel. We should all work together as much as we can. And that's probably more than 90 seconds.
Thank you, Shimon.
That was very beautifully done. I'm going to ask a few questions, which, to the extent to which you can, I'd love a yes, no, or you can say to me, I can't answer it in a yes or no. So that if you can't, it's okay. But let me see if you can. And now I'm hesitating, Ronnie, because I'm saying to myself, is this another question you'll say to me? Why am I asking it? Because it's not something I'll have to deal with the World Zionist Congress.
If you know you shouldn't ask a question, you shouldn't ask the question. But I'm in your home, so I will accept it.
Would you rather I not ask you?
I would love to ask. I would love it.
Okay. One of the things you'll have to answer is, the World Zionist Congress gives money to religious organizations, to Jewish organizations, in Israel and the West Bank. As far as you're concerned, should the World Zionist Congress be funding non-Orthodox institutions in Israel?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
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 I don't believe in orthodoxy, conservative, or reform. I believe every Jew is a Jew, so yes.
So interesting.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, you all agree. Okay. Should you be funding, should World Zionist Congress be funding institutions on the West Bank?
If I am one of 500 delegates, and I need to represent American Jewry, and I need to fight for as much as I can for resources for American Jewry, and there are certain decisions that will have to be made, and we'll see what happens at the Congress.
You said yes or no, and they have been breaking that rule. So it depends. It depends.
It depends. What's it depend on?
Well, it depends if this is the West Bank and these are, according to the State of Israel, illegal settlements. No. If it's legal settlements, probably yes. But I would say under certain circumstances.
Give me a circumstance where you'd say no.
If there are institutions that...
By the way, we're talking about West Bank communities.
Oh, yeah?
We're talking about Ma'ale Adumim. We're talking about
Okay.
Efrat. We're talking about Ariel.
Okay, yes.
The answer is yes.
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 We should absolutely build a new David Shimon.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And as I said prior, I think that money should be allocated. There is plenty of money for education and religious in Israel from the Israeli government. The money should be allocated for the purposes of the Jewish world, and not just what's happening in Israel and the West Bank.
Okay. Does the Orthodox rabbinate have too much power in Israel?
Definitely.
Definitely?
Yes.
I can't answer that with a yes or no question.
Yes.
If you ask my cousins, my friends, I think a lot of people in Israel feel like they do. But it goes back to the decision of it's not my decision to make.
And again, do I understand you would support the idea of Jewish pluralism, meaning the support of non-Orthodox institutions inside Israel, whether it is Reform, Masorti, Reconstructionist, whatever?
The quick answer, absolutely yes. Mark, I am on a journey that as an Israeli that came here, that was not taught how to be Jewish. And my identity was built around the Hebrew language, my connection to Israel, the love of family and Masortiut. But Mount Sinai was never part of my identity. I am married to an American Jew who doesn't speak Hebrew, that we don't get to go to Israel as often. And I am discovering my version of Mount Sinai as I think every Jew deserves to. So my absolute answer is 100% yes.
Fine.
Can you repeat the question? Because I thought it was on the previous question.
Would you use World Zionist Congress money to support and establish non-Orthodox Judaism in Israel? Reform, Reconstructionist, etc.
Yes.
Yes.
Pluralism is a very difficult subject for our slate. I mean, as representatives of immigrants from the former Soviet Union who were denied religion for many generations, we certainly support bringing more and more Jews, I don't think that's very controversial, to encourage this identity building. AFI supports Orthodox synagogues, so for that matter, no. But we're also open to versions of pluralism. I think you'd have to clarify the question.
But you're not going to fund non-Orthodox institutions.
I'm going to go with we'll have to see.
Okay. And?
Very simple. I don't believe in the concept that we need to divide the Jewish people between Orthodox, Conservative, and Reform. These are Christian divisions that don't apply for Am Yisrael. So I have problems with each of these dominations because we should not have dominations. We are all a part of Am Yisrael, and once upon a time we used to be physical tribes, and unfortunately today we've become ideological tribes. We're trying to split amongst each other. So do I support people that are non-Orthodox to go and do something in Israel? Absolutely. Because every single Jew is an Israeli and part of Am Yisrael and has a right to live in that land and has a right to be supported.
Kobe.
If you can repeat the question
Yes.
again, so I can.
Are you supportive of the idea of non-Orthodox Judaism in Israel, Jewish pluralism in Israel,
Yes.
to the point where Israel funds non-Orthodox synagogues, non-Orthodox rabbis?
Yisrael Shelanu, slate number 3, supports pluralism in the Jewish world, and as a part of it, we believe that that Israel should recognize and legitimize the main denominations.
Okay. By the way, there seems to be pretty much agreement among you, not total, but pretty much. Okay, and now the question is, you'll decide how you want to answer this. You know, in America, the vast number of American Jews have voted Democratic for decades. More than 70% tend to vote Democrat. At the moment, there are American Jews who have been Democrats their whole life, who fear that there's an erosion inside the Democratic Party for support of the state of Israel. There are other American Jews who are Democrats who feel there is not any significant erosion. Those who feel there's an erosion look at the 3 congresswomen who support BDS. We haven't talked about BDS, but many people would say that BDS is not a pro-Israel stance. And even there are, right now, Democratic senators running for their nomination, for their party as president. We're speaking about Senator Elizabeth Warren, we're speaking about Senator Bernie Sanders, who have taken very strong stands on Israel. And I think we have a tweet that we can put up on the screen. This is what Bernie Sanders said about AIPAC. The Israeli people have the right to live in peace and security. So do the Palestinian people. I remain concerned about the platform AIPAC provides for leaders who express bigotry and oppose basic Palestinian rights. And for that reason, I will not attend their conference, meaning the AIPAC conference. My twofold question for you is, do you worry at all about the erosion of bipartisan support in Congress because of what's happening these days inside the Democratic Party? And how do you feel about AIPAC when you hear someone like Bernie Sanders say, it's not an organization he wants to give hechsher to, nor does Elizabeth Warren. And I believe the only candidate who is going to go to AIPAC this year is Michael Bloomberg. And even in the debate that took place recently, he was pushing back on Israel's settlement policy. So there is this concern. I would love to hear what you have to say, if anything. Kobe.
So, to your first question, yes, we are really worried about the gaps that are getting bigger and bigger between the State of Israel and the Democratic Party. We believe that Israel should stay a bipartisan matter, and that's one of the reasons that we think that our agenda is something that can help us with American Jewry for a start, and then also with the Democratic Party in continuance. Regarding to AIPAC, I think that it's complicated. I mean, AIPAC is a lobby for Israel. And sometimes there is criticism on the State of Israel, on the Prime Minister. There is a lot of clashes in recent years. And there were always clashes, by the way, between the American administration and the Israeli administration. We had times, like if we'll go to the 90s, then President Bush stopped transferring money to Israel under the Shamir administration.
Although here we're not talking about the president, we're talking about Congress.
No, yeah, but in overall it was, so eventually, politics is like a swing. 30 years ago, the Democrats were on our side and the Republicans were against us. Now we are shifting that the Republicans are with us and the Democrats are against us. We need to make sure that both sides are on our side. But in order for that to happen, we need to have a prosperous dialogue with both sides.
Okay. Ronnie, any idea here?
Yeah, I have a lot of ideas.
Okay.
So, Slate 14, Kol Yisrael, is in the Zionist manufacturing business. The adversaries of the Jewish people, not the adversaries of Israel, have tried to make Zionism a dirty word, and it's not. It's a beautiful word, and our children will be instilled with the fortitude to stand up for Israel, to stand up for their Jewishness. And to do that, your children need Slate 14 to fight for the funding, for the infrastructure, to give us the tools so that those of us, right, as I said in the beginning, we are made up of Republicans and we are made up of Democrats. But those of us that are Democrats can fight the hijacking of the Democratic Party by an extreme minority. So I feel extremely strong about that, and I think that Slate 14 will instill the infrastructure to be able to fight this in the future, hand in hand with AIPAC and their wonderful work that they do for Israel and for the Jewish people.
Interesting. You do not see yourself as an alternative to AIPAC?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Shimon?
Yes, that sounded like a great pep talk. I'm not sure if that answered the question really, but
What didn't it answer?
The erosion. I didn't hear you worried about.
You asked
the erosion?
about Bernie Sanders and the Democratic Party, and I said that we will give the tools for our children to be able to fight and educate Americans on what Israel stands for and what the Jewish people stand for. So I think I answered it 100%.
Okay, good.
But I have some questions for you later, if that's okay.
Keep going. Shimon.
Okay, sure. So the erosion, absolutely. I think we all here have a concern about it. Look, it's understandable for a politician that they want to hear two sides, but the danger, of course, is that, and we all are afraid that support for Israel will be diminishing, and that could potentially be dangerous for the state. So yes, there is definitely a concern, and AIPAC as a lobbying tool with Slate 14, Slate 13 also believes that it's very important to have that to support this.
Irina.
Is bipartisan support for Israel a great thing? Of course it is. The erosion of support in the Democratic Party, is it troubling? Of course it is. But I don't think that the Democrats, and I think you touched upon that yourself, I don't think the Democrats have had a monopoly on being pro-Israel, certainly not over the last 30 years, and that's about how long I've lived here in this country. So, you know, in my community, I believe more, actually, it's kind of flipped. A good 70% of the immigrants from the former Soviet Union are actually Republicans and not Democrats. Our slate is bipartisan, but nevertheless, there you have it.
And Rudy.
So I haven't mentioned my slate yet. I'm part of slate number 5, Vision Chamesh. It's an amazing number and also protects you from Ayin Hara. When it comes to the situation happening in politics today, okay, we're constantly focusing on top-down, but we're not focused on bottom-up. The future political and ideological class of the next generation is coming out of college campuses. The reason why people are becoming more and more anti-Israel in the world, whether it's in the media, whether it's in the government, whether it's in business and in anywhere else, is because the students are being taught to hate Israel on college campuses. That is where it has to be focused. Now, of course, we should always build relations with those currently in power, but we need to also invest in our future. That is what Vision cares about empowering the next generation of Jews and allies to be able to communicate our story and to relate our cause to the rest of the world. Because the reason why anti-Semitism rises is because we fail. We say never again after the Holocaust, which doesn't mean it's not going to happen again. It means we take a generational commitment to make sure that it never happens again. So as it's rising, it means we're doing something wrong. And that's what needs to be focused on, how to change the ideology within the pop culture coming out of college campuses. Now, you asked me to take a position on AIPAC. I've been going to AIPAC Policy Conference since probably 8th grade. And going inside, I would always see the same exact thing. A strong Israel is a strong America. Mm-hmm. A strong America is a strong Israel. And at some point, I'm like, wow, you guys are saying all the same thing. Let me go outside and start debating people. Let me learn and have conversations. So that's where I developed my thing. But I do have some critical positions on AIPAC, and Vision does as well. For example, the U.S. foreign aid. Now, I grew up thinking that this is amazing. However, what is this foreign aid? Is it money given to Israel, or is it dependency? Meaning it's credit. So all of our weapons, our guns, our planes, our tanks, our bullets, our magazines, even our boots, are made in the U.S., causing Israel to be completely dependent on the U.S. military, allowing the U.S. to dictate certain policies. I was one of the first drafts to have to wear American boots, where there was an Israeli company making those boots before that got closed down. Those jobs should be in Israel. And there's many other criticisms about AIPAC, but that doesn't mean that we need to be against it. AIPAC does amazing things as well. But both things have to be focused on.
Is AIPAC guilty of bigotry?
What do you mean by that?
Well, can we put the quote by Bernie, the tweet from Bernie Sanders back up on the screen? I'm concerned about the platform AIPAC provides for leaders who express bigotry and oppose basic Palestinian rights. Do any of you feel that AIPAC provides for leaders an expression of bigotry or that AIPAC opposes basic Palestinian rights? Any of you feel that?
No.
Okay, so the answer is no, yeah? Go ahead.
The BDS movement presents a challenge for the future of the American Jewish community and a threat to the state of Israel, or so I am told. I'm interested to hear from you, and maybe I'll start with you, Ronnie. What's your take on the matter, and what is your slate going to do to counter what is supposedly a threat?
I think that the hearts behind the people at organizations like J Street believe that they are doing the right thing, that they are forcing Israel to make the right decision. I think it is a huge strategic mistake. I said it before. I respect them as individuals, as people who love Israel. I think they're making a huge mistake, and we as a slate will fight BDS tooth and nail because it is strategically erred. They've aligned themselves with the wrong partners, and the people that are really pulling the strings behind BDS are not about a peace process. They're about the destruction of the state of Israel. So you unequivocally hear Slate 14's commitment to fight BDS day and night in every corner that it hides and expose it for what it really is, which is not anti-Israel. It's anti-Semitism, and it's as clear-cut as it comes.
So let me ask you, an American Jew who comes to you and says, I'm not interested in purchasing anything that comes out of the settlements or the West Bank or the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria, is this anti-Israel?
It's foolish, right? Because if these factories are employing Palestinians, they're hurting the Palestinians.
So you're against that position? You don't support
I think
that
it makes no sense. I think it's nonsensical. I think it shows people, it's a superficial misunderstanding of the same. It's people who have not bothered to dig in and understand, but we're in 125, 250 character society now. So that's our job. Our job is to educate and to dig deeper.
And is that the sentiment you get from your constituency, the younger generation on college campuses?
Which part?
That they understand the risk of the BDS or what it stands for, as per your
I think if you look at an organization like Stand With Us, it's hard work. I don't think that everybody understands it, but those that do, once we manage to break through, which is why I think Slate 14 has the track record of creating that infrastructure to create Zionists. So it's a problem, it's a fight, it's one of the things we're focusing on, and it's one of the most important battles that we must fight here as Jews.
Thank you. Shimon?
Yeah.
Is BDS an issue?
Right. Teaching, I teach at Hunter College, so I meet a lot of college students, and even outside of that framework, I know quite a number of people who are ideologically behind the BDS movement, and I therefore know that there are definitely people in that movement who have the best of intentions, but I agree with the statement that this is not a wise movement. It defies what they really stand for. I'm assuming that the people stand for a dignified life for Arabs, Palestinian Arabs, just as much as Israelis supposedly have a dignified life. I support that too. When I say that Slate 13 wants to build bridges, it's for all the people within Israel. That includes Jews and Arabs. But it definitely hurts not just the Jews who live in the territories, but mostly the Palestinians, the Arabs who live there.
Irina?
So American Forum for Israel absolutely opposes the BDS movement and wholeheartedly. As far as answering your other question about that, what happens if somebody comes to you and has that opinion, that got me thinking. Again, I think we have to differentiate between the opinion of somebody who just simply comes to you, and then the leadership. Okay, so I think that the leadership of BDS does an unfortunate and very good job of delegitimizing Israel, and they're definitely anti-Israel from our standpoint, and it's something that we're prepared to fight against tooth and nail. However, if somebody comes to me with that position, would I say to that person, you're anti-Israel? Would I say to that person that they're anti-Semitic? No, of course I wouldn't. I'm going to try and educate them and discuss these issues with them and try to convince them that they're wrong.
Thank you. Kobe, and then we'll go to you.
So I think that I said it before, that
Then
our
say it
main
again.
concern, I will say it again, that our biggest problem before we go to BDS is actually the ignorance and that people don't really care. And we believe that the key for the young generation to care about Israel and to know more about Israel is through those cultural centers and through learning Hebrew. I think that in order to gain knowledge, it's important for you to know how to read. And if you're being nurtured by foreign TV that only shows you the conflict, okay, and it only shows you, one photo, eventually we know, I remember from Chomat Magen in 2000, that there was a picture that was also on Israeli newspapers. It was a Palestinian kid standing in front of an Israeli tank. Now, this kid probably had some terrorists behind him. But when people see a kid standing in front of a tank, their heart will go for the kid. And it doesn't matter if he's Palestinian, if he's Chinese, if he's Jewish, or whatever. That's why we're saying that we need to educate people, and it needs to come through what we believe in slate number 3, which is learning Hebrew. Then you can read better resources about what's going on, get the bigger picture, and learn for yourself.
Thank you. And Rudy, I'd like to phrase the question in your regard somewhat fashionably. Is what you have around your neck symbolic of your support of the BDS movement? What is it?
Absolutely not.
So tell me.
It's not that I've heard about BDS or that I've helped fight against BDS, is that I'm on the ground every single day fighting against BDS. But I think before I answer your question about what is a sudra, let me answer first.
That's what it is?
Sudra is basically the native head covering of the Jewish people. Okay? If you look at back in the day, we didn't wear a small kippah. In fact, the kippah developed because we tried to minimize our identity, to hide our Jewish identity, or that we were dhimmis in the Middle East and not allowed to wear the sudra. I saw a picture of my great-great-grandfather with the head covering, and I'm like, what is this? This is what the Arabs wear. And then I saw a picture of Rashi, and then I saw a picture of the Rambam. And then I found in the Talmud that it talks about the sudra as our native head covering, so we're reviving that element of our identity that has been colonized. Now, to talk about BDS, BDS is not a movement. BDS is a resolution. Let me explain to you what I mean. When I went to UCLA, before I transferred to Columbia University, because it was listed as the #1 most anti-Israel school at the time.
You loved it, yeah.
When I went to UCLA, it was the first time that they tried to bring a BDS resolution on a student campus. We fought it, and we got it shut down. And I remember the tears in my friend's eyes. And that's when I realized we had already lost. It wasn't about getting it passed or not, because regardless of if it passes or not, that doesn't mean the school divests. And even if the school divests from Israel, how much money is it invested in Israel in the first place? And yes, it's bad, and I fight it when it's there. But the problem that it's even okay to be a part of the conversation, that is the moment that we lose. The moment that ideologically the next generation always focuses around a conversation about Israel being bad, about the Jews not having a right to exist, and us constantly trying to attack BDS, and when we fight it and when we tear it down, we think we win. We didn't win. The BDS is a big distraction strategy. It forces us to focus on shutting down a resolution that doesn't do anything, instead of focusing on changing the narrative for the next generation. And there's another issue, that the people on the ground, the students, are not empowered. Too many organizations. This is why vision is so important, to give the voice to those on the ground. My father told me when I was young, he was president of LEGF, the students supporting the Jewish people in France, and he said that organizations are usually created to serve a cause, but at some point the cause ends up serving them. Now, I disagree with him, and I don't think every organization is like this. But I think the organizations need to understand, for those on the ground, that they are a resource for us and not the other way around.
Okay. Teisha?
We're going to get back to the area of Jewish pluralism for a moment. And this can be a very quick, again, yes or no answer. And we'll just go one by one. Ronnie, do you believe there should be a formal egalitarian section at the Western Wall in Jerusalem's Old City where men and women can stand together and where women may read from the Torah with as much legitimacy as the traditional women and men's sections?
Yes. In old photos, in recent history, you see old photos of men and women there without mechitza, and plus we are in favor of freedom of religion, so yes.
Irina?
Yes, I believe so, again.
This division on how we pray is actually a colonized Christian concept, so I'm all about decolonizing, so yes.
And Kobe?
Yes, simple yes.
Oh, that's nice. We get 5 yeses. So all of you, you have 30 to 45 seconds. I want you to sort of sum up, what would you like to leave the audience with as they, as we conclude this evening with the 5 of you? Kobe, what's the message that you leave our group with?
I want to tell the audience that eventually, if they want to learn more about Israel and about their Hebrew roots, they need to come to us. Because eventually, we are the only ones talking about education, especially for the next generation, but also making Israeli culture and Hebrew culture available for all. For Jews, and by the way, also open for non-Jews that want to learn. You know, if the Germans has the Goethe Institute, it doesn't make any sense that Jews will not have the Ben Yehuda Institute that will be a place to nurture your Hebrew culture. And I think it should be around the world, not just in the US, but we will start it over here.
All right. Irina.
I want to thank all the participants. I want to thank you and JBS. What I want viewers to take away, I'm going to go back to the slogan of Americans for Israel, strong diaspora, strong Israel. We want to integrate all Jews, Jews from the former Soviet Union, but all Jews in America, to bring them closer to the values and tradition, to support Israel, and for that, first and foremost, to vote, to educate themselves, and to care.
That's lovely. Shimon, you had some trouble getting here, so I'm going to give you a hair longer. As you leave our audience tonight, what do you want them to understand about Americans for Israel?
Well, first I have to say it must be very confusing for the voters because we're so much in agreement. It seems that the bridges that I told we want to build are already in their process. But I want to leave the voters with the idea that slate 13 is an excellent choice because we incorporate so many of the values that we have heard and discussed tonight. We are very much in favor of educating the diaspora, of creating a strong connection with Jewish history, with Jewish language, Jewish grammar. We are inclusive, so that includes the Jews and the Arabs. We are inclusive for the Russians who come here. We are I think anything that slate 14 have said, as far as I'm understanding, is very much in line also with slate 13. So I would say if you vote for slate 13, you got all the goodies of the other parties.
Fascinating. Thank you, sir. Okay, so you've been passionate, you've been interesting. So what do you want to leave the audience with? What's the ultimate message of slate 14?
It's very simple. In conclusion, I say to all the American Jews that will be voting and should be voting in the World Zionist Congress, that regardless of how you practice halakha, what language you speak at home, where you come from, who you're going to vote for in the American elections, who you're going to vote for, or who you're going to rather root for in the Israeli elections, slate 14, Kol Yisrael, has the proven track record of creating proud, knowledgeable, and capable Zionists. We will fight for the resources that we need for Americans to be strong supporters of the state of Israel. And I will slightly differ with my esteemed colleague, my rabbi, or my friend, the rabbi. We believe that sunlight is the greatest disinfectant. And we believe that if you speak of monopoly and of bridge building, we should be building bridges between ourselves. And we will fight to make the World Zionist Congress transparent, fair, and relevant to not just the 56,000 Jews that voted last time, but all 8 million American Jews that live in this country.
By the way, I want you to know that if we had a lot of time, or if we do another program, one of the things we very much would love to discuss with as many of you as could be available is, what do we want Jewish life to be in terms of transparency. And certainly the World Zionist Congress is a model of what the Jewish world does together, and there should be total transparency. And I give you credit because you're the only person out of the 14 who've made this point, and I think it's very, very important. Give you a lot of credit. We just can't get into it here, but thank you very much. So we started with you, we end with you. Rudy, what's your takeaway message as you leave the thoughts to with our audience tonight?
As a part of Vision, slate number 5, Chamesh, there are other issues plaguing our world other than the coronavirus. The issue is the inability to engage with each other and living in our own echo chamber, whether that's the right against the left, the religious against the secular, or all sorts of issues, including the older generation and the younger generation. And for too long, the younger generation has not been able to stand up, to speak up, and to be able to share their voice. We're not big money, we're not big organizations, no one of us is getting paid for this. We're local activists on the ground trying to share our voices and to be able to change the way education is done, because we got to campus and our education was not given to us in the right way. So we're trying to change that. And there are other problems plaguing the Jewish world: assimilation, lack of identity, anti-Semitism, not having a collective vision in Israel that brings us forward. The only thing bringing us together in Israel is a war every few years. So we have to have a new conversation. The chapter of Zionism, of returning to Zion, reviving our language, reviving our civilization has been complete. What's the next chapter? Now, we don't claim to have the answer. We're trying to bring people together in order to develop that.
Kol hakavod to all 5 of you. By the way, can you tell them what you said to me just a moment ago? That you would.
I want another hour with you.
We want an hour with you.
I have so many questions. If you're able to stand.
We're not doing another hour. You can stand. But it indicates how really wonderful we thought all 5 of you are. And we are very grateful. I am personally very, very grateful. And by the way, I've known Rudy for a long time. He was on L'chaim. I would love to have every one of you on L'chaim, but I know you now. And you're wonderful souls, and you've got wonderful minds. Every one of you has a very legitimate perspective. And we push you here, we push you there. And all I want is for our audience to really hear the depth of your thinking. And you did that for me, and I'm very, very grateful. Thank you very, very much to all 5 of you. And I wish you all, I expect you all to be on the World Zionist Congress. You're all delegates. And one of the things I'd love to do is, after October, when you're there, we come back and we talk about what you experienced, the good and the problematic. So this is not the last time we will see each other. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good night.
And that concludes JBS's exclusive 3 World Zionist Congress election forums. I hope you've enjoyed all of them. And all of us at JBS take real pride in these telecasts that you've brought you. It's not just because this was truly an historic first on the American Jewish scene, a forum on television for virtually all of the slates to stand before you, the Jewish public. JBS has provided an opportunity for you to get to know, to have a feeling for what each of the 14 slates represents, what's important to them, and where you might agree or disagree with them, so that if you're voting in this year's World Zionist Congress elections, you can do so out of more than simply strictly organizational loyalty. And please vote at zionistelection.org. You have until March 11th, but don't wait. Vote now. And if these forums here on JBS were meaningful to you, I wish you'd let me know. Please email me at rabbigolub@jbstv.org. rabbigolub@jbstv.org. I love hearing from you. And I hope you'll keep in mind that all the programming seen here on JBS depends on your support. And I hope you'll all consider sending a tax-deductible donation to JBS at Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. My thanks tonight to our 5 outstanding panelists. They did marvelously. Ronnie Fuchs, Shimon Ben Hollander, is it Den Hollander? Den. Yes. Shimon Den Hollander, and you're a rabbi. Yes. Where did you get your smicha? YU, okay. Rabbi Hollander, Irina Zeletova, Rudy Rachman, and Kobe Cohen. And to all 14 panelists who made 3 nights of 2 hours fly by. My thanks also to Herbert Block and the entire AZM family for their amazing work in putting this historic series of forums on American television with us. And a huge thanks, huge, to my wonderful, wonderful staff who've been magnificent and tireless in helping to produce these 6 hours of live television on JBS. Thank you, thank you. All of you in the control room, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And most of all, we thank you, our JBS audience, for your enthusiasm, your most kind and loving words to me and the JBS staff, and for all your financial support that makes JBS possible. By the way, on Monday, Israel goes back to the polls for the 3rd time in a year. We'll be covering it all for you. We'll have a special election results night, Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, right here live again on JBS. So I hope you'll join us for that. It's an interesting evening. What will happen? Will there finally be a result, or will we go around the tree for another 4th time? Anyway, Monday night, 6 p.m. Until the next time, I'm Mark Golub. Be well, my friends, and Am Yisrael Chai.
You've been watching the first ever World Zionist Congress Election Forum, presented by JBS in partnership with AZM, the American Zionist Movement. We hope you've enjoyed and learned from the program. JBS, expanding Jewish understanding, celebrating all things Jewish.